The time is now 17:30 in Japan, so we would like to start today's program. Good afternoon, hello, and good morning. Welcome to the second Strategic Partnership Symposium held as part of the Building a Network of Strategic Partnerships to Strengthen International Competitiveness Among Japanese Universities project under the Japan Forum for Internationalization of Universities. The subtitle of today's symposium is How to Deepen the Partnership in Various Aspects. My name is James Fegan, a project specialist in the International Projects Promotion Group of the University of Tokyo, and I will be acting as the Master of Ceremony today. So without further ado, I would like to ask Professor Hayashi Kaori, Executive Vice President and the Director of the Division for Global Campus Initiatives of the University of Tokyo, for the opening comments.
Thank you, James, for introducing me. And good morning and good evening, everyone. Mr. Yosuke Kobayashi, Director of International Affairs Division at Higher Education Bureau, Ministry of Education, Culture, Sports, Science and Technology, and Professor Jaren Rees, Vice Provost of University College London, and Professor Akiyoshi Yonezawa, Vice Director of the International Strategy Office at Tohoku University, and honorable colleagues from the collaborating universities and distinguished guests. I am Kaori Hayashi, Executive Vice President of the University of Tokyo, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome you to our online event. And on behalf of the organizers, I would like to say a few words about this Strategic Partnership Symposium. Today's symposium is being held as a part of the project called Building a Network of Strategic Partnership to Strengthen International Competitiveness Among Japanese Universities. The project is being conducted under the auspices of the Japan Forum for Internationalization of Universities. As one of the policies to pursue the internationalization of higher education here in Japan, since 2014, the Ministry of Education has adopted the Top Global University Project. Under the framework of this project, various universities in Japan have taken initiatives to strengthen their international presence. And as for the University of Tokyo is concerned, we established the building of the global campus model for University of Tokyo and has positioned this strategic partnership project as the core of that project, which has enabled us to conduct joint research projects and other academic exchanges with top leading universities from all parts of the world for over a 9-year period. Following on from last year's symposium, which had the theme of strategic partnership to strengthen the international competitiveness under the corona pandemic, our aim in today's discussion is to explore further how we can deepen our strategic partnerships from a variety of perspectives now that many restrictions due to the pandemic are being lifted, almost. And I am very happy to see students back on campus, especially those from overseas, and enjoy the vigor we used to have before the COVID-19. And I'm also excited to implement all kinds of measures for internationalization and globalization to support the future of the younger generation. And from a broader perspective, we believe that these networks will become even more important in the years ahead, as we see that universities everywhere need to cooperate with each other more in order to tackle complex global issues, naming a few of them such as widening the gap between the global south and the north, or infringing basic human rights by autocratic regimes, or frequent natural disasters that are so destructive and threatening to human lives. At the University of Tokyo, we place great emphasis on dialogue as a means of sharing common questions and understanding different cultures and values. In this respect, we also hope that this project will help us learn more about each other and how, through dialogue, universities can strengthen international partnership more effectively and efficiently. This symposium will provide us with a good opportunity to reflect on the achievements of our strategic partnership so far, and also offer new perspectives on how Japanese universities can further advance internationalization, the point that Japanese universities are not necessarily good at. I really look forward to lively and productive discussions. Thank you very much for your kind attention, and I'm looking forward to your talks. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Hayashi. I would now like to request Mr. Kobayashi Yosuke, Director of the International Affairs Division, Higher Education Bureau of the Ministry of Education, Culture, Sport, Science and Technology of Japan, to give the opening address. Mr. Kobayashi, the floor is yours.
はい、ただいまご紹介いただきました。
Thank you very much for the kind introduction. My name is Kobayashi, Director of International Affairs Division of MEXT. On behalf of the Ministry of Education, Culture, Sports, Science and Technology, I'd like to say a few words on this occasion of starting the symposium. I would like to express my heartfelt respect for the efforts of the University of Tokyo, the partner universities, participants from Japan and abroad, and all concerned with this symposium. The Japan Forum for the Promotion of Internationalization of Universities began as part of Top Global University Project, SGU, in its 8th year, centered around the selected universities with the aim of encouraging university-led activities throughout Japan. Currently, 19 projects by 18 universities are at the center of the project, and its university-led activities expanded to promote internationalization. As of today, there are 53 national universities, 9 public universities, 57 private universities, 2 junior colleges, 3 technical colleges, and 7 organizations, and 1 supporting member. A total of 132 schools are participating, gathering increasing momentum and attention. Among them, the Strategic Partnership, in which the University of Tokyo and 8 other universities are collaborating, has nurtured comprehensive, mutually beneficial relationship with overseas universities that goes beyond ordinary inter-university exchanges and promote educational and research activities and exchanges. The deeper ties with overseas universities will lead to high-level education collaboration such as joint degrees, double degrees, and co-tutors, as well as high-level international joint research. It is expected to be a new way of international cooperation. In this project, we aim to improve the international competitiveness of Japan's higher education by sharing the issues and good practices, and by deploying the practices widely. We hope that a number of Japanese universities building strategic partnerships with overseas universities will increase. Currently, we are defining a clear national direction of education, including higher education, of course, for everyone to be able to continue to learn and relearn throughout their lives. The Council for Creating the Future of Education, chaired by the Prime Minister Kishida, has been launched, aiming for the diversity and flexibility at the crossing of education and society. In the post-COVID-19, this Council will consider a new international student plan to increase the overseas-going Japanese students on top of the existing target of 300,000 students. The second set of recommendations is scheduled to be compiled next spring. In order to promote the recovery of international student exchanges that stagnated due to COVID-19, MEXT will facilitate the use of high-quality online education and continue to help internationalize universities and students. We strive to build a new international educational environment that nurtures truly global human resources. The internationalization of the university environment and experience of online education will serve as a bridge. In closing, I'd like to conclude my remarks with my hope that today's symposium will be an opportunity to explore the ideal form a future strategic partnership. Thank you for your attention.
Mr. Kobayashi, thank you very much for your kind words. We will now move on to our two guest lectures. Questions on the two guest lectures will be answered during the panel discussion that follows. If you would like to ask questions, please use the Q&A function on your screen. The first lecture will be given by Professor Yonezawa Akiyoshi. Professor Yonezawa is the Vice Director of the International Strategy Office of Tohoku University. He mainly conducts research on comparative higher education policy, especially focusing on world-class universities, internationalization, and public-private relationships in higher education. Professor Yonezawa, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Professor James and Professor Hayashi and Professor Watanabe and the colleague of the University of Tokyo. And I'd like to extend my sincere gratitude to the organizers for providing us with the incredible opportunity to engage discussion about global engagement and international partnership. It is an honor to be able to have a dialogue with the Vice Provost Rees from the University College London, partly because our university, Tohoku University, has a strategic partnership with the UCL since 2018. Also, there is another person called Professor Tatiana Fumasori, who is also the professor of the University College London. So today's discussion, I partly all her discussion when we had a kind of collaborative research when she visited to Japan in the last December. Okay, so I will talk about the global engagement, but basically I would like to talk 4 points today. One is the Japan's context on a global engagement on universities. And then I will talk about the Japan's context on the university strategy. And thirdly, I will talk about the value of the international partnership in realizing global engagement. And then what will be the strategic approach to achieve the above-mentioned goals and objectives. What is the global engagement? The global engagement is defined as the 3 components. One is the commitment to the meaningful relationship with partners in other parts of the world. And also, it is a movement beyond the mechanics of carrying out more traditional campus-based international activities. And thirdly, it is a dedication to deeper and more prolonged commitment to international partnership for mutual benefit. And there is another definition, it is called outward engagement as a new model of the internationalization. So it is the spreading institutional research through the branch campuses, research centers, and distance delivery. So this means that we need to have much more kind of the research by the university to know about what's going on in the world through these mechanisms. Also, we need to compete and for global ranking and also the market share. But finally, what we need to do is to collaborate for joint projects, research sharing, and the mutual benefit. So that by doing so, we are trying to evolve use of the international partnership as an agent of the internationalization. Then I will talk about Japan's context on the global engagement of the universities. Actually, the global engagement is not a new topic for the Japan's higher education. So by 1970s, Japan, our country, claimed that we are advanced model of the modernization in East Asia. But after experiencing the World War II, we tried to avoid the assimilation policy to other countries. So in the 1980s, after we achieved the economic development, we activated the international cooperation in higher education that respect the autonomy of the partners and emphasize long-term relationships. And in the 1990s, we strengthened our contribution to the world through the basic science, and it resulted as a recent launch of the Nobel Prize from Japan. But we are also facing the pressure of the global and the regional economy. So the one very big global movement is the world-class university policy and the academic excellence initiatives. Especially East Asia, like China, South Korea, and Japan, are quite active in the systematic the policy for the world-class university, as already mentioned by the Professor Hayashi and also the Mr. Kobayashi. And also the university rankings, it started about 20 years ago. Then now we have very widened participation among the university over the world. It is more than 1,000, almost 1,500 universities are now participating. And that poses pressure to the matured non-English speaking systems such as Japan. And then the activated global and regional engagement with the multilateral initiative is ongoing, means that, that this is not only the G7 country or the advanced country, but the much more various types of countries are now participating also from the global south, of course, to the multilateral initiative for the global and regional engagement. In 2000, we participated and initiated global regional network and consortium. And the Tokyo University is also very active on this, and our university as well. And then the last 10 years, especially not only Japan, but many universities in the world are now trying to strategize the partnership based on the active diplomacy from the global perspective, not both in the national and also the institutional level. So one aspect of the partnership is, of course, the acceptance of international students. So as Japan as a whole, we had a kind of the national goal of accepting the international student 300,000 by 2020, and it was realized before the COVID-19 pandemic. But it is mainly for the maintain and developing the share of the presence of the Japan in the international student market. And why we need to do that is, first of all, that we are trying to develop the advanced human resources, especially in the STEM field. And also it is also true that more than 90% of our international students are the self-financed students attracted by the Japanese economy, society, and culture. So because of that, the Japanese society in general, including the universities, are trying to develop and provide the Japanese language program and also the vocational training program as well. Our national incentive was more for the human resource development linked with the Japan's economy and society rather than the income generation through the higher education service export. This is seen more in the English-speaking countries like UK, Australia, and Canada. And then we have a strengthened link with the international, global, regional research industrial collaboration. So our question here is what values can Japan's universities share with the international students and also the international partners? And these are the kind of example of the collaboration through the international partnership for higher education capacity development. And this is mainly driven by the kind of national initiative. So there are very old, traditional, very good long relationship with, for example, King Mokto Institute of Technology, Thailand, and the Tokai University and other universities are active, engaged in this partnership for more than 60 to 70 years. And the Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology in Kenya is also the very good example that it started the collaboration from 1980, but after that, now it is a center of the Pan-African University in the field of the science, technology, and innovation. And Japan is also collaborating through the partnership with the universities. And we have the flagship university with the name of the Japan in Malaysia and Egypt. And then also we have the regional the engineering network with the ASEAN University Network. And as already mentioned, that we have a top global university project for this is the last year for this. And then we have a new program called the Japan Virtual Campus Program, which is a platform, online platform for providing the higher education content to the world from Japan. This is a kind of the figure we have as to the international student share. And then you could see that we are now number 8, and we are now almost the same with China as to the number of international student acceptance. And the English-speaking countries are leading, but also the Germany and the France are also and the Turkey, Netherlands are also the very strong accepting country. And the right-hand side is more interesting because that we had a kind of the image that most of our students are coming from the so-called Chinese character the area, means that they are much more advantage in the learning and especially writing and reading the Japanese. But it is not exactly true these days that the number 2 is Vietnam, Nepal, Indonesia, and these are the countries outside of this region. So that we need to think about seriously how to kind of respond to the needs of our international students. And also we are trying to be activating the sending students abroad. And we also try to internationalize our home campus, and also not only for the in-person, but also virtually. And about 20 years, we had a kind of challenge of the inward-looking attitude among the Japanese student. But it is also true that the less threats of the brain drain, but quite until recently. But it is changing quite rapidly. So that now there are many the Japanese youngsters who are more attracted to the outside of Japan. And 2010, we had a kind of national policy called the Global Human Resource Movement as an agent of the Japanese economy. But now the drastic changes in global, regional, national context under the digitalization in higher education and the whole society, we are now trying to redefine the value of the study abroad and the internationalization of home and the virtual, not only in Japan, but also all over the world. And one of the national initiatives, again, is the Inter-University Exchange Project of the Japanese, it is called Tenkaido Project. And you could see that this is a kind of a very highly linked to the national diplomacy of the knowledge diplomacy of Japan. The government set the target partnership region and countries, and then the university collaborate on this. And one of the recent one is the Indo-Pacific one. And then in this project, the Tohoku University has a partnership with the UCL and the other UK universities. And the collaboration is not limited to education, but especially for the research university, much more for the early career researchers and the doctoral students. So what we are trying to do is to send our the young leaders to overseas as a leading researcher. And by doing so, we are trying to strengthen our network and the sustainable network and also the research collaboration and joint research. So these are the things we are trying to do. And quite recently, that under the COVID-19 pandemic, it became a bit difficult to go and visit and accept the international students, the researchers. So then we started the new project called the Online Network. And this is a kind of a participation online meeting regularly. And this is becoming more popular, although even we started the actual visit, but we still continue on this project. And this is based on the government fund of the fostering the research university capacity development. But now we are thinking about to continue this project based on our own funding. Maybe we can summarize the Japan's context of university strategy as a national policy into the 4 areas. One is the development of capacity to strategize the internationalization, and this already have a 220 years in history. And that top global university project that was mentioned by Mr. Kobayashi and Professor Hayashi is part of this project. Another one is sharing resources to accelerate the internationalization. This is a forum of us, and we are proud that the Tohoku University is the chair of this forum and also the member of this the Strategic Partnership Project. And then I already mentioned that the Tsukuba universities are leading and hosting the Japan Virtual Campus program, pilot program. And then we have another the project called Academic Excellence Initiatives, and now the government provider are the 10 trillion Japanese yen university national fund, and for fostering for 25 years the top university, and we are now discussing about building on this. And then we have increasing learners with the international experiences. That is the very big project we are trying to do. So the Council for the Creation of the Future Education that was mentioned by Mr. Kobayashi is a cabinet level council, is now trying to think about how to foster how to support the student exchange. But this is very, very interesting that actually the discussion in the Council of the Creation of Future Education have focused on promoting the acceptance and sending of students across the borders. So this should be understood as a part of the larger policy shift in government support from the subsidizing higher education institution to the subsidizing individual learners. So as university considers their international strategy for the future, it is essential that we have a strategy for achieving sustainable growth by exploiting opportunity in the wider market, rather than simply following the governmental policy direction. So on this way, the partners are more than governments, but universities and research institutes as peers, international peers around the world, and also the for-profit and the non-profit private sector organizations. So what is the value of international partnership in the realizing global engagement? Maybe we should think about the kind of conceptual transformation of what is the meaning of the relationship between the public bodies such as the government or the international organization and the universities as an institution. So it is exactly the UK that became a model for us for a long time. It is called June public management. So under this context that the government is a principal and the university is a agent to implement public purposes through the higher education. But this relationship is now changing gradually through the evolution of the idea of the engagement. So this public and the private relations, the institutional relationship is now changing from the so-called activism stewardship to the engagement. This means that the purposeful dialogue between the invest and the company for the mutual sustainable prosperity. And also the international partnership is not only the kind of transaction. So maybe you could see that the students or the researchers move one university to another. But by doing so, that this person can accumulate their own kind of the resources or the skills and knowledge. But that's it. But what we are now trying to do is that the transformative international partnership means that, for example, we invite the international advisor for the deciding our own governance and management, and also the chair and the current the advisor is from the University College London. By doing so, that we learn a lot from the peers' experiences, and then by doing so, we can transform our system more fit to the global engagement. So by doing so, we try to engage directly with the diversified internal and external stakeholders more to the global regional dimension in addition to the national and the local dimensions. So what will be the strategic approach to achieve the above mentioned goals and objectives? With whom? Resources, sustainability, and how about the ecosystem? And these are kind of the kind of textbook recipe, and everybody in the world is reading on this, so that I don't really have to read everything, but maybe you could see that we need to have some strategy on this. And then I'm sure that every university has some strategy on this. And then if you could see the website of our member of the International Partnership Project, there is a wide variation of how to define the institutional strategic partnership, and the approach is so different among each other. So what we are trying to do is anyway the partnership through the overall institutional partnership strategy, and then the one size fits all doesn't work. And then the very minimum requirement is that anyway that we need to have much more systematized our information and the process of the partnership. So that is a kind of minimum requirement. But also the recently, especially which is becoming more important, that we need to have some ethical principle test. So what is the risk and benefit? exploitation, standard of education. This is also the one we need to think about it. So by doing so, we need to combine the top-down initiative and the grassroots initiatives. Of course, the kind of the top level, the president level exchanges partnership is of course important, and this is one of the drive. But also we need to have lots of grassroots initiative for the individual researchers and department. That is really, really important. So what we are now facing with as to the international partners strategy, maybe we can see four components. One is a digital transformation. Under this condition, it is quite common that one student today attend the class online to Tohoku University, but actually affiliated to the National University of Singapore. This is really, really common in these days. And also the expansion of the global and regional dimension to every university, and also the change in talent and resource opportunities. So the world is really, really changing a lot. And then the organizational reforms, management and governance and accountability, I already mentioned about is as a kind of transformative international partnership. So by doing so, we can achieve the global engagement as a common goal. So let me go make the kind of final discussion. One is that I'd like to personally challenge the hegemonic view of the globalization. Of course, including Tohoku University or the University of Tokyo, some the top universities, so-called, has much more resources and more kind of active in the global engagement in some aspect. But it is not really true that it has to be dominated or monopolized by these universities. So I think that the interactive global conversation, international partnership hold a promise for addressing critical global issues that brings different national perspectives and resources together is important. And each university has a rationality to engage in global issues while respecting different culture and ideas in a highly diverse and interconnected world. And the international partnership provides an opportunity to create higher education dialogues, internationally constructed and consistently evolving, that go beyond what any one institution could do that alone. And use the opportunity to develop the capacity of our members. And we have the international the Institute for the Disaster Sciences in Japan, in Tohoku University, and that University College London also has the Institute of Research and Risk and Disaster Reduction. And these two universities, of course, are becoming highly productive in the collaborative research and the research output citation. But also, this is one of the examples that we have this kind of network swiftly responded to the needs, international needs, for example, to react and the support the tragedy of and the recovery and reconstruction of the recent the earthquake in Turkey and Syria. So we need to think seriously about how we can attract and nurture internal and external community members and develop international partnership for the global well-being. So we are really proud that the two doctoral students are now coming to Tohoku and then do the kind of doctoral study here. And these kind of the grassroots and the long-term relationship is really, really important. Thank you very much for kind listening.
Thank you very much, Professor Yonezawa. Our second guest lecture will be given by Professor Geraint Rees, Vice Provost, Research, Innovation and Global Engagement for UCL, the University College London. Professor Rees's specialization is in cognitive neurology, with interest focusing on understanding the neural basis of human consciousness in heal and disease, using functional neuroimaging techniques in combination with other methodologies. Professor Rees, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, and good morning from London. Before I begin, I'd like to express my gratitude to colleagues at the University of Osaka, the University of Tokyo, Tohoku University, and to JFIU's members for this opportunity for knowledge exchange and, I hope, a stimulating panel discussion. It's always a tough ask to follow a speaker such as Professor Yonezawa. who captured so clearly those historical currents that have shaped the present-day context for universities in Japan. The relevance of the historic to the contemporary is a thread that I too will pick up today. Thank you, Professor Yonezawa, for your generous mention of the very positive relationship shared by our two institutions, something embodied by his cooperation with Professor Fumasoli. Now, one of the most enjoyable aspects of my role as Vice Provost for Research, Innovation and Global Engagement at UCL is it gives me the opportunity to learn from and exchange ideas with some of the world's finest research and education institutions. And so in that spirit, I'm both excited to be speaking with you today and very happy to be traveling to Japan next week, meeting with university partners, businesses, and research organizations. It's a mark of the importance of our relationship with our friends in Japan that this will be my first major international visit in my role as Vice Provost. But it won't be my first visit to Japan. I first visited 23 years ago in 2000, so not quite as far back as some of Professor Yonezawa's references. Back then, I was a doctoral student and clinical fellow, and still a few years from becoming director of UCL's Institute of Cognitive Neuroscience and then Dean of Life Sciences. Few experiences in my life were so culturally and academically enriching. And that's despite having had plenty of international experience already from early on in my career, having spent time in California at Caltech. Now, my visit to Japan taught me two important lessons. The first lesson, as much as Japan is wonderfully unique, I found it shares many interesting similarities with the UK. Those similarities go well beyond the geographical, the governmental, and of course, the mutual love of tea. The dynamism of the research sectors, the clear focus on innovation and excellence, and the familiar scales of our universities are all factors in why collaboration between the UK and Japan just makes sense. And that's a point to which I'll return. Now, naturally, there was a certain amount of culture shock for me. I'm sure the Japanese colleagues I met on that early trip might have found the young British neuroscientist rather shocking too. So my second lesson is to make the most of international visits, one must be well prepared. And that preparation needs to go beyond reading a guidebook. It needs us to look much more deeply at not only at our own experiences, but also that of one's institution. So in expectation of my visit and for this symposium, I've been thinking a lot about UCL's many historic and contemporary connections to Japan and the many strong personal links to Japan that exist among our academic community. I was delighted to be introduced to the Japanese term zunagali, which I thought a neat way of describing those many connections, old and new, that bind UCL to Japan. Indeed, I think of Japan often as I walk through our very own Japanese garden, right in the heart of our university. The garden is home to our monument to the Choshu Five, all of whom studied at UCL in the 1860s and who went on to have such significant roles in the development of the new Japan after the Meiji Restoration of 1868. There's so much more I can say about this, but suffice to say, we are looking forward to reflecting on the Choshu Five's legacy this year, 160 years after they first came to UCL. Shortly after the Choshu Five, in the 1870s, Joji Sakulie studied chemistry at UCL before returning to Japan to become the first professor of chemistry at the University of Tokyo. And in 1937, Professor Sakulie was invited back to London and was appointed as the first non-British honorary fellow of UCL in 1937, a remarkable fact. And the recording of his speech from that occasion is a truly special item in the UCL archive. Now, that exchange of knowledge went both ways. UCL was also where the first Englishman to be able to speak and write Japanese, Eric Sado in English, or Sado Inosuke in Japan, was given his opportunity to travel to Japan as a student interpreter. Sado went on to have a career as a diplomat in Japan, and his son was vital to the establishment of the Ose National Park in Fukushima Prefecture. And we remember Sado through our chair in Japanese law. Now, I tell you all this because that's the nature of these historic connections. They endure through time, they accrue over time, and they can have wonderful and often unexpected legacies that can take time to emerge. So UCL's Tsunagari goes back a long way, but much as we are proud custodians of our history, we're also the architects of our present day and future connections. So a more coherent focus on Japan emerged quite naturally at UCL over the past 10 years. And this has, I suspect, coincided with the renewed international focus of Japanese higher education, as Professor Yonezawa explained in his presentation. So we saw the number of publications between UCL scholars and Japanese researchers increase by 56% in the last 10 years. I'm pleased to say I've personally contributed to that figure thanks to a paper with collaborators at RECON. The number of Japanese students studying at UCL has also doubled over that period, with some 270 now at UCL. That's a pretty substantial increase on the 5 that we started with 160 years ago. And just like Sado, our students still travel to Japan, studying at Tokyo, Osaka, Kyoto, Waseda, and soon we hope at Tohoku too. These increases are perhaps most accurately characterized as organic growth. They reflect a strong disposition towards collaboration between Japan and the UK, which has also increased over that time. Such is the spread of excellence in Japan across many universities that in a normal year, our researchers will publish work with over 150 universities in Japan, from Kagoshima to Kitami. We have, however, taken steps to ensure that our strategic partnerships with Japan reflect that growing enthusiasm. In the north, with our great friends at Tohoku University, we provide funding and in-kind support to collaborations in domains such as disaster science. This is an area where each institution can reasonably claim to be amongst the very best in the world. Further south, with Osaka University, we work on pressing topics such as global health, sustainable design, and more besides. And what's quite distinctive of our partnerships in Japan, when compared to those with our near neighbours in France and Germany, is the clear enthusiasm of industrial partners. Our esteemed partners at Horiba, Eisai, at Santen are generous enough to support work in advanced propulsion, neurodegeneration, and ophthalmological diseases. Of course, each country might have its own specific priorities in each of these areas and our distinct pedagogical and research culture. But these are common problems, and we approach them with common purpose. That our previous president and provost, Professor Sir Michael Arthur, was awarded the Order of the Rising Sun in November of last year was an immense personal honour, of course, but I think also a recognition of UCL's commitment to Japan throughout his tenure. So if that's the institutional picture, what is the national and international picture from the UK? So the UK's departure from the European Union, announced in 2016, radically altered the topography of our international relations far beyond the borders of Europe. Japan certainly acquired a greater degree of prominence in UK foreign policy, is in part a result of that. Seeing the potential, our Prime Minister Theresa May was quick to court a trade deal with Japan, with negotiations from as early as 2017 and a deal in 2020. Now, the UK has had, to the amusement of many, 3 prime ministers since then, surely a level of volatility that the volcanologists and seismologists may find familiar. And yet, the attention paid to Japan by the UK has survived that turbulent time, particularly in science, technology, and higher education. Why is that? Well, it's interesting to note that when the UK's Science Minister, George Freeman, announced the creation of the UK's new International Science Partnership Fund, he chose to do so in Japan at Keio University. His speech from that occasion is revealing and might answer that question. He started, for example, with some impressive statistics. He said, few countries can match Japan when it comes to R&D. Total expenditure was £128 billion, 92 billion of that from the private sector. Japan has 951,000 researchers, is 5th in the 2021 Nature Index, with the UK being 4th, and 13th in the Global Innovation Index. He went on to highlight strategic advantages that Japan has: world-class universities, the second most Nobel Prizes in natural sciences, 9 moonshot programs, a £1 billion strategic innovation program, and WPI centres. And then he said, the UK is Japan's 4th biggest research collaborator, but Japan is the UK's 14th biggest research collaborator. And he closed by saying that the research quality between the UK and Japan is 3.5 times the world's average. And that's higher than our average with USA, Germany, or China. And in medicine, it's over 6.5 times. Now, those statistics and characteristics are undeniably compelling. They show many similarities between our countries. But there's one statistic there where I see considerable room for growth, that Japan is only the UK's 14th biggest research collaborator. For a system of Japan's size and excellence, that seems like a missed opportunity. So how can we work together to bridge that gap? Now, let me say at this point, I was asked by the organisers to comment on both the advantages and disadvantages of cooperation with Japanese universities. Now, our view at UCL is there are a few disadvantages to working with any international partners, and fewer still with Japan. At most, we might say there are challenges, some of which are specific to Japan, but many which are common to all. Now, in my introduction, I've talked about the personal, those human scale interactions that are the fundamental basis of international cooperation. I see 3 scales above that: institutional, national, and international. And I'd like to now set out some ways in which I think systems at those 3 levels could be pivoted to better support the personal interactions. So let's start with the institutional. And there are 3 C's: community, culture, and capabilities. Community is ensuring we attract and keep the right staff and students, people fundamentally disposed towards international cooperation. Culture is about ensuring the international focused disposition of our people is reflected in our strategies and celebrated by our institutions. And capabilities is making sure our systems and processes both align with the global aspects of our strategy and incentivize individuals to pursue global collaboration. Now, attracting staff and students is difficult for universities. We compete with our neighbours in London, in the UK, in Europe, and globally to attract the very best. We compete with industry. And in Britain, we cannot hope to match the salaries that might be offered at, say, US universities, let alone those at the headquarters of Google just down the road. So we have to compete in other ways. One of the big attractions of UCL is that we provide clear career progression. We offer a very clear academic career framework, tracks for research and teaching focused staff. We publish and stick to our academic promotions criteria common across the whole of the university. We tell our staff and applicants exactly what they need to do to advance through the various career levels, and we expressly reference international work in our careers framework, giving it parity of esteem with national partnerships. That's quite a big differentiation from practice in some other European countries, for example, which can be quite opaque, with a tendency to reward loyalty by hiring from their own doctoral students and only hiring internal candidates. Now, our approach means that 1/4 of our academic staff, for example, come to us from other European countries. And that's paying off because overall 1/3 of UCL staff are from countries outside the UK. And as you might expect, we see a correlation between, say, UCL departments with a lot of Italian staff then collaborating with colleagues in Italy. That pattern is repeated for other countries too. I'll talk about staff a little more when I speak of what might be needed at the national level, because governments have a big role to play here. Now, when it comes to students, this year at UCL, almost exactly half our students come from outside the UK. We enjoy 28,000 international students at UCL now, including those 270 excellent Japanese students. That proportion has grown significantly over the past decade. It was less than 1/3 10 years ago. So the university looks and feels much more international now. As with staff, for students, we're competing on a global stage, and we don't have all the same competitive advantages. Our neighbours in Europe offer significantly lower fees. The US and Canada offer world-beating facilities and extracurricular activities. And Australia, of course, not only has excellent science, but a lot of sunshine. So somewhere like UCL competes on the basis of our excellence and environment, our prestige and our place. And that's made easier for us by delivering our education in English, as language remains a key determinant for where students will look to study. Of course, international cooperation becomes something of a reflex for everyone when you have such a globally diverse workforce and student body. We ensure that this reflex is then properly reflected in the institutional culture of UCL. Our strategy talks about how international collaboration is vital to responding to those big challenges that face the world. So similar to how the Japanese government has 6 global issues, UCL has since 2008 had 6 grand challenges to which we respond. Our education is by design global in its outlook and delivery, with a vast array of international opportunities for students. Now, if we encourage such a culture strategically, then we're responsible for enabling it practically. And this is where I've seen such a significant advantage of our work with our friends in Japan, because I think we share the same outlook and the same needs. So we've run highly successful joint seed funds with colleagues at Tohoku and Osaka. These schemes have 2 advantages. First, they support successful applicants by providing them with financial resources, a necessary component of international collaboration. But importantly, they send a strong signal to all of us, from deans to PhD students, that we think this form of collaboration is important, that they should feel empowered to participate or support others to do so. And we're prepared to put our money where our mouth is on supporting collaboration. So in education and doctoral training, we're seeing the emergence of more formal co-supervision arrangements, something, as you heard from Professor Yonezawa, we're taking forward with Tohoku as we speak. PhD candidates who are trained in 2 systems benefit from 2 different research cultures and access to the facilities and resources of 2 institutions. That's a really compelling offer for a certain pool of students. At UCL, we're rightly proud of our doctoral programs and quite protective of them. And put another way, there are not many organizations in the world with whom UCL would engage in such a form of cooperation. And it's our respect for Japan's great universities that leads us to seriously explore those opportunities. If there's a challenge here, it's that our funding paradigm is perhaps jointly less than optimal. Our funding constraints mean that we cannot, as universities, secure huge quantities of money to fund these programs, meaning that despite their broader benefits, at the moment they can only directly support a fairly limited pool of people. The other challenge, I think, is really one of language. If our academics are to find shared purpose, then they need a common language. The UK, despite its high degree of ethnic and cultural diversity, has a bit of a reputation for monolingualism, with many people speaking only English. There's also a tendency for British citizens to only feel confidence in speaking another language when they can do so fluently. That lack of language skills is something that's detrimental to intercultural understanding and can affect cooperation outside of the Anglosphere. We attempt to address this at the earliest career stages. We try to offer all students at UCL a language study option, whether as part of their degree or in addition to it. And we've been made aware of some excellent opportunities for our students to study Japanese with partners in Japan, and hope to add these to the mix in the coming year. Now, I've told you about the institutional, so let's move up a level to the national. I think what's needed at the national level is quite simple in theory, but something hard to get right in practice: adequate resourcing and good regulatory alignment that supports a vision shared by both universities and governments. In the context of the national level, as in our universities, there should be an approach of global talent acquisition, creating the conditions to attract and retain people. Global universities need, not just want, immigration schemes that can support the flow of top quality students and scientists, irrespective of where they come from. But we need those schemes better designed to integrate and work coherently with the various research funding schemes and programs that our governments and research councils create. Of course, as much as we want to be able to recruit the very best, we also don't want governments to create a situation where our universities become overly reliant on international tuition fee income. In the UK, any question of dependency is significant and part of the interaction between research and tuition fee in the UK that I'll just explain a little bit about. So for a bit of context, 3 UCL UK policy decisions mean that all publicly funded research now makes a loss. And separately, almost all UK undergraduate education costs more to deliver than is received in income. These factors are three: the withdrawal of capital funding for universities from our government in the 1990s, the systematic underfunding of the indirect costs of publicly funded research, and the transition of student funding since 2010 to a system dominated by tuition fees that don't change as the cost of providing education increases. So those factors make it particularly challenging to run UK universities in a financially sustainable way, though we do our best. But they've had one positive side effect. They've strongly incentivized an international outlook and international student number growth, not just because of the diversity they bring, but also because of that additional funding stream. And it's interesting to note that historically, the underlying viability of those policy decisions is predicated on a far earlier policy decision in 1981 by Margaret Thatcher's government to introduce full cost international tuition fees. So that's an important challenge for Japan to work with the UK when it comes to exchanging students. The costs of education in the UK are very real to us and feel very tangible for our heads of department. I think governments should recognise that one country cannot have all the answers or share the same policies. And we should look to work together in a pragmatic way to help establish reciprocal talent flows in each direction, particularly for periods between 6 months to a year, I think. These short-term exchanges would enable staff in Japan and the UK to, for example, spend time in the other location while retaining their connections at home. And that's a powerful way of making deep cultural and scientific connections. Now, just as we in universities are subject to the external pressure of the university rankings that Professor Yonezawa mentioned, governments pay a lot of attention to these measures too, sometimes more than R&D spend, it might seem. For example, the French found themselves lower in the global rankings than they might want. Their solution was to increase the scale of each university, financially incentivizing mergers, making bigger universities and grouping this grande école to help build the critical mass to move up in the global rankings. Germany ran their own excellence initiative, making their universities more visible, create more competition domestically and make them more attractive to partners. And those schemes have both had significant impacts. But I think the new endowment funding that the Japanese government is bringing in will be even bigger, both in terms of its spend and its positive effects. Much like those seed funds I mentioned, it sends a really strong signal that Japan is opening an exciting new chapter, even more encouraging of international collaboration. And as much as that type of funding is always welcome, I think it's important for governments to make themselves aware of the Haldane principle, the rather noble idea that once governments have decided to allocate funding, it is researchers, not politicians, who should decide which projects receive funding. And we know from experience across the world that that approach delivers the best and most impactful outcomes. Finally, to the international. The major advantage that both our countries have is there's such a strong bedrock of UK-Japan cooperation, as I've outlined today, and that our science minister chose to launch the UK's flagship new fund in Japan seems evidence that our governments recognise that too. Interestingly, and a similarity not observed by our minister, was that both our countries have a highly competitive research powerhouse as a near neighbour. For the UK, the EU. For Japan, China. We can, I think, go a little bit further in supporting each other in our work with those big powerhouses, whether that's working trilaterally or sharing good practice in partnerships. And of course, fostering strong and productive relationships with our nearest neighbours, despite the occasionally difficult political backdrop, is important for our research. The UK's previous involvement in Horizon Europe goes a long way to explaining why small countries such as Sweden, Belgium, and Denmark are higher up in our collaborations than Japan. It's a tantalizing thought. What if the UK had such a systematic funding system with Japan? It could only go to improve the quality and quantity of collaboration. The challenge, though, is in a limited resource scenario, how do we convince governments to have both a continental and a global focus? How can we convince short-term entities, governments, of the need to pursue long-term benefits that can take time to materialise? In the UK, the government has recently now created a Department for Science, Innovation and Technology. And that's an important marker for the UK and for UK universities, because we have a clear place to go and communicate and lobby for this. There are other advantages I can see for UK-Japan connectivity too. Research security is an increasingly challenging and important domain, with government expectations, regulatory intervention, and media scrutiny all rising. I know this is the case not just in the UK, but in all the major research nations. Now, with Japan, the level of trust between our countries is high, and there's probably a better shared understanding of the risks than in some other parts of the world. And certainly this seems an area where the UK and Japan might consider ourselves a little further ahead than some countries. There's a genuine opportunity, I think, for both sides to emerge as global thought leaders in this area, in the same bracket as the US, but bringing our own unique perspectives. And that's something which could in turn support the broader international academic mission of each nation. Now, I hope you'll have detected the pride with which we view our Japanese partnerships and our optimism for the future. The alignment of these three levels, institutional, national, and international, will go a long way to fostering even more impactful research education and innovation activities in the future between Japan and the UK. There are challenges, but far more advantages. And so I'd like to conclude by saying that as much as I'm excited to visit Japan again next week, I hope that you would all be excited to visit us at UCL in the future. And when you visit, we'll make sure to take you to our little Japanese garden. You'll find it won't compare to those of Kyoto or Sendai, but even so, I think you'll agree it's wonderfully emblematic of our tsunagali, our abiding connections to Japan. In a sometimes divided world, these connections are more important than ever. And depending on when you visit, you might find our garden either a very lively and full of students or an unexpectedly tranquil place, perhaps an apt metaphor for Japan itself. Our garden is situated between our nanotechnology labs and earthquake research labs and the rather more sedate and quiet libraries and museums. So perhaps it's a fitting metaphor for UCL as well. Colleagues, thank you greatly for your attention today. I look forward to continuing the conversation and to seeing some of you in person in the very near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Rees, for your talk. I would like to thank both Professor Yonezawa and Professor Rees for the deep and insightful talk on the topic of university relationships from a Japanese and UK perspective. Next, we move to the panel discussion where Professors Yonezawa and Rees will be joined by Associate Professor Obayashi Saori of the Center for Global Initiatives at Osaka University, and Professor Watanabe Satoshi, Special Advisor to the President and Deputy Director General of the Division for Global Campus Initiatives at the University of Tokyo. Professor Watanabe will be the moderator of the panel discussion, so I would now like to figuratively hand over the microphone. Professor Watanabe.
Thank you, Mr. Fagan. Good morning and good evening. As introduced, I'm Watanabe, and it's my pleasure to act as a moderator for this panel discussion. The theme of today's symposium is how to deepen the partnership in various aspects. So I hope all of you joining this symposium have insights and ideas on this point through this panel discussion. To begin with, I'd like to share one slide showing the current status of strategic partnership in Japan. In November 2021, we sent a questionnaire on strategic partnership to 110 universities, which fits into the categories shown here. And we got 68 replies. Among the 68 universities, about 40% have exchange activities based on strategic partnerships or similar partnerships, according to the questionnaire. And replies show a wide variety of the objectives of the partnerships of respective universities, as seen in this graph. Here, blue bars show the objectives of partnerships, according to the replies to the questionnaire. So important point is that the various points got many points, like can be seen here. So this suggests the variety of the strategic partnership activities in Japanese universities. So considering this situation, the two lectures given by Professor Yonezawa and Professor Rees were very valuable to have an overview of the strategic partnership. Professor Yonezawa explains the evolution of global engagement of Japanese universities and describes the value of partnership for the global engagement of Japanese universities. Then he also discussed the value of the partnership from a broader view, namely in the international context. Professor Rees described the historic connections of himself and UCL to Japan, and then discussed the advantages and challenges of the strategic partnerships on three different levels: the institutional level, national level, and international level. The content of the two lectures overlaps in some extent, but were complementary to each other with different viewpoints from Japan and from United Kingdom. So the two lectures provide us various issues that are worth considering in this panel discussion. So we welcome questions on these two lectures from audience. Though I may be able to pick up only a few questions because of time. Of course, questions on the discussion hereafter are also welcome. Okay, so as introduced, Professor Obayashi of Osaka University joined as a panelist, besides Professor Yonezawa and Professor Rees. So first, I'd like to have comments from Professor Obayashi. So Professor Obayashi, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Professor Watanabe, your kind introduction. I am very honored to take part in this discussion today. Thank you very much for providing me with this opportunity. And I think two lectures were so inspiring, and I really enjoyed and learned a lot from your lecture. So could I just share my short reflection on my very small study which I took several years ago. Then I'd like to introduce you to the activities that Osaka University did during the pandemic. The first reflection, in 2016, I jointly examined the approach to strategic partnerships together with my colleagues in Germany and Australia, in consideration of a growing global trend in this direction and corresponding strategies at that time. That was due to that was found by the survey conducted by European Associations for International Education, which is called EAIE, in 2015. And those three institutions in this approach, I mean, Osaka University and University in Germany and University in Australia, in this approach was seeking equality and placing a focus on creating value from the partnerships. However, since we just started our strategic partnership initiative at that time, we mainly discussed how to establish, how to determine partners, how to manage, or how to evaluate them, and finally, why we initiate such partnerships. I think this is the most critical point, not for the beginning, but throughout the partnerships or collaboration. And I was stimulated by those discussions and did a small, again, study together with my colleague at here Osaka University to observe more cases in Europe in 2017. Some results were already shared at the previous symposium, but I would like to add one point related to the theme of this symposium today, the alliances of universities in Europe, there are quite, many, but are very efficient and strategic due to common exchange and funding ground at the inter-university level. So I think this could be relevant to the lecture by Professor Rees. And then I'd like to now share with you the value or the affirm of the value of strategic partnerships or international partnership during the pandemic. Osaka University marked 19 since its foundation and the centenary of Osaka University of Foreign Studies in 2021, and we held an online event symposium together with some of our strategic partner institutions, including UCL. And thanks to participating institutions through this event on the day, and also we did the prior discussion. So from presidents and vice presidents, researchers, staff, and students were directly or indirectly engaged in discussion, in discussing and sharing their experiences during the pandemic. For example, how university can support students in education and activities or maintain during the crisis, and how we can optimize accumulated knowledge to tackle challenges, and also global engagement in the post-pandemic world. And the examples we shared were presented how international partnerships and networks among universities around the world played critical roles during the crisis for the students and staff and local and global communities. And finally, we signed joint statements for collective actions for education, research, and innovation, and engagement to society. So that's just an example from Osaka University. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Obayashi. You shared your study on strategic partnerships and also your discussion with partnership universities during the pandemic. So it's quite helpful to further consider the value of strategic partnerships. Okay, so so far we don't have any questions from the audience. So to start with, that I'd like to ask panelists, do you have any question to other panelists here? Okay, so I will start. Actually, so first I'd like to consider the strategic partnership in general. So in this viewpoint that Professor Yonezawa mentioned very briefly in his slides that so he explained, he showed some slides on institutional partnership strategies. And there are some important points listed. And one is thoughtful practices for sustaining partnership. I think that how to sustain the partnership is a very important issue. So I'd like to know a little more detail about this point. Thoughtful practice for sustaining partnership. Professor Yonezawa, do you have any opinion on this point?
Thank you very much. So let me introduce the kind of historical transformation of our strategy for the partnership. So actually we are relatively early to start to claim that we should have the university strategy for the international partnership relationship. It is in the beginning of the 21st century, so it's almost 20 years ago. So at that time, what we had is that we are in a process of so-called incorporation, so that all of the national university became incorporated in 2004. So then we already started about how to do that. And actually there was at that time I was in a quality assurance agency called the National Institute of Academic Degrees. And I had a kind of the opportunity to participate the visiting program of the leading the national university to UK for collaboration to learn how to manage the university. And then there we had a kind of close conversation with the vice president at the time. And then the strategy was really clear that we need to have more university partnership as number. And then we need to have some participation to the consortium, global consortium. So as a result, we have more than 200, almost 250 university level partnership. It is actually the double of the Tokyo University. So there is a very big the difference of the strategy, because maybe Tokyo University is much more kind of the cautious to have kind of so you are much more trying to have a good relationship with a small number. But anyway, that is partly because of our initiative mainly drive based on the very bottom-up initiative. So we encourage the people to our members to make a collaboration, and then we basically welcome almost automatically. But we found that there is a very strong, very high transactional cost that we need to maintain the partners. And many the turnovers are there. So this means that the one professor moved from one university to another. And then not only for our side, but for example, some the professor of the University of California, Santa Barbara moved to University of Chicago, and then we will move the kind of the exchange relationship of the president level on this. So that really happens. So under this condition, that what we need to have is that the more kind of close monitoring, and then we need to protect the very, very important partnership by having the very clear the monitoring strategy. That is what we are now trying to do. So what is kind of the reason what is not that so simple. That sometimes we of course see some international reputation, including ranking. But this is not only the factor, but much more like we are trying to figure out what is our university mission, and then how it is we can contribute to the society, that kind of sense. So anyway, to have a kind of a very explicit strategy really helps to mobilize our resources of the international partnership to the realizing our own mission. So that and together with the international partners, that is what we are now trying to do.
Professor Yonezawa, thank you very much. Yeah, the number of the partner of Tokyo University is quite surprising. But I understand that the importance of the monitoring of the activities, and also that to assess how much such activities match with the university's strategy or missions. Thank you very much. So any comments from other panelists on this issue?
Yes, I could say a few things, if I may. I think my reflection on this, I agree with everything Professor Yonezawa said, and congratulations on 250 partnerships. That's very impressive. My thinking starts with the idea that it's the individual who's at the heart of this, the individual academic collaboration between two people, or the student exchange that brings that. And so I have 3 comments on thoughtful practices to sustain partnerships. First is, because they start with individuals, I think it's important for our institutions to support and celebrate those individuals when they're successful, because that creates a virtuous circle of other people noticing that these are important. But there's a very important signaling function for sustaining partnerships that we can do within our own institutions. And the second thing I think is it's important to deepen the contact between high-level leaders. My view is many of these partnerships start with spontaneous interactions between individual colleagues, and we have to notice them and then tell a story about them, and then come together like we're doing today at a high level, visit each other. There are transactional costs. I agree with Professor Yonezawa. So I think we need to be careful about those. But I think that deepening of contact between high-level leaders leads to the strategy becoming more embedded. And then finally, we try to think long-term, perhaps not as long as 160 years. We can't think that long. But what I mean by that is I think, as in my talk, partnerships deepen and deepen and deepen and deepen over time. They don't just come fully formed, falling out of the sky, and suddenly we've got a strategic partnership. They need to be nurtured like plants, grown carefully, and a lovely storytelling about them. So I think thinking about what the actions are, not just immediately, but the actions that will have an impact in a year and in 5 years and in 10 years is also an important part of thoughtful practices. So I think supporting and celebrating individuals, deepening contact between high-level leaders, and thinking about the long term as well as the short term are things I would highlight as important in that area. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor Rees. So you pointed out 3 very important points. Yeah. In particular, I agree that it's important to deepen the high-level contact. Yeah. Okay, so now, Professor Obayashi, do you have any comment on this issue? No?
Just one brief comment. I really appreciate your insights towards the assessment, because I always find difficulties in evaluating the partnerships. Not I, but the university, I mean. Because for sustainability of the partnership, I think universities should go through the assessment by university management. But apart from the numbers, it is difficult to find, deep collaboration behind the numbers. So I have difficulty in finding alignment between the numbers, for example, like, co-publications or, numbers of student exchange or something like that, and actual, actual academic, exchanging. So your insights are very helpful. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Obayashi, for your comments. Here, we have some questions from the audience, so I'd like to read. Okay, this is just a comment. I think governments, so that it's an audience from Tokushima University, so it is like this. I think government seems to play a very strong role in pushing up international partnership. How to encourage bottom-up approach for universities outside the top global group? How to improve quality rather than, improve quality rather than maybe quantity, and in the context of funding shortage. And coordination and information sharing also possess as issue. It's difficult for smaller universities to stay competitive. Actually, so in this comment, some important issues are shown. One point is insufficient funding, and another point is difference between the top global universities and small universities. So, any comments from the panelists on this point?
I'm happy to start.
Okay.
I'll take the quality versus quantity question first, and I'll also partly respond to Professor Obayashi and her comment on KPIs and metrics. So I think an important thing in any partnership is to evaluate its quality, and that's really difficult to capture in a number. I'm not afraid of using qualitative methods and qualitative analyses, and case studies, for example, I think are quite powerful at evaluating quality, as well as the KPIs for quantity. So I would always tend to favor quality over quantity if there's a trade-off. But I don't think there's a necessary trade-off. I think as Tohoku demonstrates, I'm sure those 250 are very high quality. So you can have quality and quantity, but if there's a trade-off, I would prefer quality over quantity because of that long-term focus. To the other questions, outside the global group, other universities, I think it is harder, but certainly in the UK, we think of partnerships and networks as important. I mean, what all universities have in common are students and student exchange. What most universities have in common is research. The difference is not usually a quality difference, but a quantity difference in the amount of research. And so I think thinking of each country as a network of institutions with different capabilities, rather than as there being some ranking of all the universities on some ordinal scale, and only the top ones should do certain things. I think that's not sensible. I think thinking of it as a network might be helpful. And then the funding shortage, I don't have any answer to that. That's global, but I would say that academics are incredibly resourceful at making great use of scarce resources. So while I would always welcome more funding for international collaborations, sometimes it's the small amounts of money that just create a symposium or a seminar or a chance to travel that have the huge effects. So we shouldn't underestimate the effect of funding that's distributed to people in small packages, to a lot of them, to building these collaborations. But of course, I'd always like our governments and our funding agencies to put more funding into this. So those are some of my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you very much for answering several important issues. So Professor Yonezawa, Professor Obayashi, do you have any comments?
Obayashi-sensei, could you go first?
And then I just got just thank you again, Professor Lees, for your encouraging comment. And I think for network, the value of network, particularly for academic network, I think horizontal. So there are lots of potential, I think, among academics to work together on a project basis. So I think there is again there is a possibility for collaboration, domestic collaboration as well. Domestic collaboration can be extended to international networks. So this is my comment. Thank you.
Okay, so can I? So I think that we can have lots of opportunity for the game change. That is my observation, and that this is much more like the observation from the as a higher education expert rather than the representing the Tohoku University at all. But for example, I had the opportunity to search the financial condition of the law schools, the graduate school law in a leading university, and I found that the Nagoya University has a very strong financial resources, not only from the government but also from other types of funding. It is ODA and the official development. It's again the governmental fund, but much more kind of different with the kind of research funding. So why it is so that there are many factors, and actually I was working there before, so I know very well. But there was a very strong researchers who are doing the East European studies and the former Soviet Union studies, and in the field of the legal studies. and they became a very good agent or the very good active leaders of the making the exchange and sometimes support of the legal development in the post-Soviet and the post-socialist countries through the kind of sharing the experience of Japan, and it really make a kind of very big opportunity for attracting the very good talents and actually the national leaders of these countries, and then it became very helpful. And this is of course the completely different story of that. How many lawyers we can produce in Tokyo, but this is a completely different story. But this is possible to make such kind of changes. And another famous story is that Asia Pacific University, Ritz Macon, and Ritz Macon is a kind of Secretary General of us. But this university started to attract half of the students from Asia Pacific, and it is based on the kind of industrial support. So the industrial world supported them because that it is necessary to have somebody who has a talent, who has a kind of good connection with the Asia Pacific and Japan, and that they are really the very important the talents making the bridge between the Japanese economy and the Asia Pacific. And finally, that the Toyo University is also another very interesting case that providing the business Japanese online education, and that is really successful. And it's really possible to change the game by finding the very niche market. And of course, there is some kind of hegemonic structure is always there, and of course that some partnership is also highly related to that. But there are many opportunity, and I believe that it is possible for the Tokushima University and other university to do that. Thank you.
Professor Yonezawa, for quite a detailed explanation with showing some examples of Japanese universities. Okay, unfortunately, that time is already up. So thank you very much for the panelists for quite insightful comments on very important issues on the strategic partnerships. So I hope that the audience learned much from this panel discussions. And we have several questions in Q&A. So we will try to answer them later through chat box or through website of our project. Okay, so we'd like to finish, but before closing, that if the panelists have very short comments, I will welcome such comment. Professor Rees, do you have any comments?
I'd just like to say what a pleasure and a privilege it has been participating in this conference. I've learned a lot from my colleagues, and I'm going to reflect upon that and think about that. But it again reinforces to me the enduring value of partnerships in higher education. So thank you.
Thank you. Professor Yonezawa, do you have any comments?
Thank you. The long-term relationship is really important, and I am really proud that I'm an alma mater of the University of Tokyo, and this is really fascinating opportunity to be to participate the symposium hosted by Tokyo University.
Thank you. Professor Obayashi, do you have any comments?
I just would like to express my sincere appreciation to University of Tokyo and Professor Rees and Professor Yonezawa for your inspiring lectures and discussion. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Finally, I'd like to thank all of the panelists. And I myself learned a lot from this panel discussions. So, for example, important issues such as assessment of the partnership and so on. So I hope that this might be a good opportunity to further consider the value of partnership and to get some ideas to promote strategic partnership activities of respective universities. Thank you very much.
I would like to thank all the panelists for their views and comments. Before we move on to the next session of today's events, we will take a short break and restart at 19:10, so please remain connected. Also, today's recording of today's symposium will be available at a later date on the University of Tokyo's website. Furthermore, the slides of today's presentations will also be available on the website. So please have a look at the Strategic Partnership Project website of the University of Tokyo. Thank you very much. So once again, thank you to all the speakers and panelists. Welcome back. In this session of the symposium, representatives from 3 Japanese universities will showcase examples of their strategic partnership activities. There will be a short question and answer session after the 3 presentations. If you would like to ask questions, please use the Q&A icon to send your questions. Once again, please be aware that due to the time constraint, not all questions sent may be asked. The first presentation will be from Keio University, given by Professor Tsuchiya Motohiro, Vice President for Global Engagement. Professor Tsuchiya.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting Keio University to talk about the current state of our strategic partnerships. So last year, I talked about our strategy. So there are 4 steps. First, partnership building. Second, deepening connection. So in many cases, we use personal connections first. Then third step is multifaceted collaboration. Then finally goes to university consortium. This is a kind of alternative approach. It's not a mainstream approach, but we are using this type of partnerships. It is a sometimes good way to think about. And So today I want to talk about some updates about the current status of our university's strategic partnerships. So first we will cover examples of consortium level activities, such as U7 Plus Alliance of World Universities. And then we will go over activities conducted with partner institutions. And the third category is our collaboration with foreign embassies and affiliated institutions. Then we summarize advantages and characteristics of Keio University's strategic partnership, as well as challenges and future prospects. So here is a table of contents of my talk today, and there are 3 categories of topics. One is consortium partnership, and second, long-term partnerships. And the third one is partnership with foreign embassies and related organizations. I provide 6 cases related to these 3 categories. So first case is in the category 1, consortium. And so case 1 is hosting of U7 Plus Alliance Presidential Summit. What is U7 Plus? So it's related to G7 Summit. So this year, G7 leaders get together in Hiroshima in May. And so our activities, U7 Plus, is related to how we can change the world in a better way to cope with G7 leaders. But why we are using plus? Because we are reaching universities beyond G7 countries. We have 52 universities in 19 countries. Actually, 40 universities are active today, and UCL, University of Tokyo, and Osaka are members of the U7 Plus alliances. So we will host U7 Plus Alliance Presidential Summit in 13 days on March 16th and 17th in Tokyo at Keio Mita campus. So why we do it in March? So we want to have 2 months ahead of the Hiroshima summit in May. So because we want to submit some proposal to G7 leaders, and we want to make a good, I don't know how to say, influence over the G7 talks. So this is a kind of university alliance we are spending a lot of resources these days. The second case is RU11. This is Research University 11 in Japan. University of Tokyo, Osaka University, Kyushu University, Tohoku Universities are members of RU11. So Research University 11 is focusing on how we can progress our research activities in Japan. And Keio University is in charge of international affairs under RU11. So that's why we are meeting regularly with foreign similar type organizations, such as LERU, it's a League of European Research Universities in Europe, and AAU, it's Association of American Universities, and Canadian U15, German U15, G08, Group of 8 in Australia, and the Russell Group in the UK. So on behalf of the RU11, so we signed the Leiden Principles in May last year. So we are reflecting our activities and intention to strengthen our research activities in Japan in the global perspective through this consortium. And third case is APRU. APRU means Association of Pacific Rim Universities. So this is another consortium of 60 research universities in 18 countries and regions of the Pacific Rim. It was formed in 1997. So our commitment last year includes annual presidential summit in July, and senior international leaders meeting in October, virtual student exchange through the year, and Asia Pacific Women in Leadership, we call it UPWIL. So my colleague, Vice President Okuda, participated UPWIL in a very active way. So, and APRU has a new secretariat, so he will visit us quite soon. And the second category is partnership with universities. So case 4 is Japan-Korea Millennium Forum. So what is Japan-Korea Millennium Forum? In 2002, FIFA Japan-Korea World Cup soccer tournament was held in Korea and Japan. So we started this framework among the 4 universities in Japan and Korea. They are Korea University, Yonsei University, Waseda University, and Keio University. The 4 universities rotate hosting duties. So during the pandemic, COVID-19, so we did it online, but last year we came back to in-person event. So we went to Yonsei University, and so this year, Keio University will host this Millennium Forum in Tokyo at Keio Mita campus. So we are discussing a topic year by year. So last year, we discussed how to respond to climate change and energy transition. After discussing these topics, we made a MOU to start a joint online lectures at 4 universities. We provide classes online, and so each university can take those online materials to teach students in each university. And third category is foreign embassies and related organizations. Our case 5 is Embassy of the Republic of Indonesia and the Australian Embassy. So the Indonesian Embassy visited us May last year, and they introduced the Indonesian International Student Mobility Awards. They call it the ISMA. So KO joined ISMA information meeting after that, and so we hosted an event in our program, and so we applied for ISMA in January this year, and became a host university, one of the host universities last month. And Australian Embassy is in our neighborhood. It's a walking distance. So we have a very good relationship with the Australian Embassy. And so they visited us one day, and they introduced about the new Colombo plan for Australian students. And then we held the information session about it in our event. And next case is British Council. So KO and the UK has a long relationship after Yukichi Fukuzawa visited the UK. And in November 2022, KO invited the British members of British Parliament to us, and as a part of the delegation organized by British Council. So then after that, the UK Minister for Science, Research and Innovation and the British ambassador came to us. And so we hosted an event called Campus Live Japan. It is organized by THE. So many of you know what is THE, Times Higher Education. They are famous for world university rankings. So they held an event at KO Mita Campus. And so we got together a lot of university professors, students, and other staffs. So we are keeping good relationship with the British Council, and in total, we have agreements with 20 UK universities. And finally, so we hosted Team GB, Team Great Britain, during the Olympics and Paralympic Games in 2020. We say 2020, but actually 2021. So we hosted the team at the Hiyoshi campus during the games. We couldn't have a deeper collaborating events because of the pandemic, but so our friendship continued even after the Olympic Games. Then case 6 continued with the British Council, and so we hosted Experience Japan exhibition. It's a long time event from started in 2011. But during the pandemic, we moved online. But we are still attracting many prospective students to come to Japan. So more than 20 Japanese universities held booths. And so the more than 1,000, 2,000 people attended the event from Asia and other parts of the world. So we are collaborating through this event, Embassy of Republic of Indonesia, Australian Embassy, and the University of Tokyo, India office, and other people. So here is a summary of advantages and characteristics. So we have three categories. First one is consortium. Consortium partnerships allow for a bigger impact than a single university is capable. So, and we have joint involvement in common local issues. So gender is a big issue in Japan, in Japanese universities now. So we can discuss these kind of things through the consortiums. And we have opportunities to strengthen bilateral relationships and create new alliances among member universities. The second category is long-term partnership with partner universities. This type of partnerships allow for a concrete proposal based on long-standing relationships of trust. This is a very important part for us. And so the third category, partnerships with foreign embassies and related organizations. We can find new opportunities that arise from these collaborations. So our partners not are limited to universities. So we have wider apertures for other organizations such as embassies and affiliated institutions. These are good advantages and characteristics of our partnership. But what are challenges and future perspectives? Our challenge is that how we can maintain those foundation of collaborations. So our resources are limited. Keeping up relationships and communication with all of the existing partners are very difficult. So we have many activities every day. So how we can reallocate our resources is it's a big challenge for us. So we must utilize foundations effectively. So we have more than 300 agreements, MOUs. We have to evaluate. We have to prioritize what we should do. So we need to clarify objectives for each partnership. Why do we need to do this? Why need to expand this relationship? Why need to have more opportunities for students, faculties, and staffs? So this kind of questions must be addressed in everyday basis. And again, so our human resources, structures, and budget are limited. So we have to rethink about what we can do to make our partners' relationships more strategic. So I want to stop here. I hope this is helpful. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Professor Tsuchiya. Next, Professor Natalie Konomi, Vice President of Kyushu University and also the Manager of the Global Strategies Office at Kyushu University, will give a presentation. Professor Konomi.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the introduction. Also, thank you very much for allowing us to share with you how Kyushu University leverages its network of partners by providing some examples of strategic partnerships and consortia. But first, because I'm not sure if everybody knows Kyushu University, I'm not sure about the participants today, let me give you a quick overview of Kyushu University. So Kyushu University is actually one of Japan's leading research-oriented universities. We are a comprehensive university, well recognized in all major academic areas. And here in this nice picture, you can see our beautiful main campus, the Ito campus, which was only completed in 2018. Now, although our Ito campus is only 5 years old, we do have a lengthy history. The university was founded over a century ago in 1911 as the fourth oldest national university in Japan. Now, Kyushu University is located in Fukuoka, in the south part of Japan, with Fukuoka City being one of the 5 largest cities in Japan with a population of more than 1.6 million. So a little bit about the university. And only recently, Kyushu University published its 10-year vision, Vision 2030, which emphasizes Kyushu University's goal to become a university that really drives social change using all its integrative knowledge. And we have set 2 major objectives on this path to achieving our vision. The first objective is to become a platform for knowledge that drives world-class research and education. And the second objective is to become the core of an innovation ecosystem that creates new social and economic systems. Now, given our strengths and features, and of course, like any university, our curiosity-driven research groups covering a wide range of fields, our top priority is to solve societal issues through 3 entry points that we defined as first, decarbonization, second is medicine and health, and the third is environment and food. Now, obviously, this vision strongly influences our international strategy and vice versa. And with a really outstanding senior management team for international, led by our Executive Vice President Kenji Iwata, strengthening our international collaborations is truly one important step or one important pillar. Now, like other universities, we have numerous international partner institutions, each of which is vital to us. The majority of these partnerships started with simple MOUs, so Memorandum of Understandings and mobility agreements, mainly student mobility. Nonetheless, as a research-oriented university, partnerships that really result in collaborative research are obviously very important to us. And we also have many of them, albeit they are not always strategic or university-wide, but limited to individuals or smaller research teams. Still very, very important. But this is now where we decided to create a strategic partnership with a greater emphasis on collaborative research on a university-wide level. And we began with our long-standing partner in the United States, with the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. Now, why did we start here? So we already had a decade-long collaboration with the University of Illinois when establishing the International Institute for Carbon Neutral Energy Research, we call it EISNER, in 2010 at Kyushu University within the so-called WPI initiative. Now, in 2020, EISNER became a WPI Academy Center based on its outstanding achievements. The director of EISNER, Professor Petros Sofronis, holds positions at both universities. Now, entering into a strategic partnership with the University of Illinois in 2019 really allowed us to expand our research activities with international and diverse world-class researchers. And despite the pandemic affecting all of us, this strategic partnership really continued to strive through, luckily, various online colloquia series, workshops, lectures, and important, the setup of matching funds or joint funds. So this matching fund or joint fund, for example, is intended to support and expand collaborations between the 2 institutions. And you can see on this slide, from the beginning of our partnership, we anonymously identified 5 areas of collaboration. So in energy field, economics, data management, library science, and humanities. So having entered our second phase now of this long-lasting partnership, we are utilizing some of the seed funding to stimulate existing and ongoing projects to encourage these teams actually to explore external joint funding opportunities. Now, that's not all that really distinguishes our strategic partnership. So there are a number of regular activities, including monthly senior management meetings, leadership calls, of course, also on-the-job interns, papers and grants, obviously, and many more. But all these activities, especially though the monthly meetings of the senior leadership and the leadership calls, are really crucial components of the most important pillar of a strategic and university-wide partnership, which is trust building. And we heard about that in the other sessions before as well. And I think it's working quite well for us here. So this is a very brief example of one of our bilateral strategic partnerships. At Kyushu University, we also think it's crucial to utilize the multilateral networks, which is why we are part of 3 international consortia. And here you'll hear a little bit similar to Professor Tsuchiya's presentation, but so we get the opportunity to utilize larger platforms as network members, which can result again in smaller or even closer partnerships. So we are members of 3 consortia, APRU, Mirai, and Renke. And please allow me to briefly introduce these to you. So in March 2021, we're still quite a new member. Kyushu University joined the APRU that you heard a little bit about already in Professor Tsuchiya's presentation. Again, APRU was established in 1997 to strengthen the cooperation in higher education for the Asia-Pacific region and to interact with thought leaders, researchers, and policymakers to exchange ideas and collaborate on effective solutions to the challenges of the 21st century. Now, currently, APRU consists of 61 universities from 19 countries and regions, and it conducts various activities that you heard about earlier as well. So the virtual student exchange programs or international symposia, summer programs for students, and more. The universities marked with an asterisk are actually partner universities of Kyushu University already on a bilateral level. Now, what are the outcomes or benefits actually of such a large consortium for Kyushu University? First of all, it begins with reputation management. We want to get recognition by performing outstanding work in education and research, and a platform like this is ideal for doing so. So in an effort to seek new collaborative solutions with the APRU network, we successfully concluded a 5-week webinar series, which was held in May, June last year. So this webinar series focused on the realization of a decarbonized society to combat climate change. It brought together really a diverse group of experts and researchers with a lot of focus on early career researchers to exchange ideas and explore potential cross-disciplinary collaborations to develop solutions. Again, we put a lot of emphasis on the ECR activities such as online networking and poster sessions to have ECRs from various disciplines and various universities discuss their research and find ways to collaborate on an interdisciplinary level. Now, this series served as a pilot for a longer-term program that is in planning right now, as we received very positive feedback from the participants. Well, this really led us to conclude that a program of this nature is essential. Another project also listed here is the SDG Education for Global Citizenship program, which started in November last year and will end this month, actually, as a first run. This program was co-designed by 6 core partner universities, including Kyushu University, and it was led by Chulalongkorn University and the Chinese University of Hong Kong. Now, in this program, the 6 core universities met on a regular basis to set up a new type of program in collaboration with the United Nations, which builds knowledge of global issues and global literacy of SDGs. And here, undergraduates from 61 universities really collaborate online in smaller teams to create something across borders and cultures. And during the project, the students are supported by mentors from academia, from the core universities, as well as practitioners. And they're now really experiencing how to collaborate, but at the same time, how to compete, because we also asked them to join an online competition. And the winning team will be rewarded with an educational trip to Thailand. Now, we're also a member of a consortium called Mirai. Mirai is a collaboration between 20 Swedish and Japanese universities that aims to foster long-term research collaborations and research excellence between Sweden and Japan through activities in research, education, and importantly, innovation, and prepare the next generation again of researchers. And again, on this slide, you can see our bilateral partners marked with an asterisk. Now, the Mirai project started in 2017, and we have entered phase 2, which we call Mirai 2.0 now, from 2020. This aims to further develop and expand the collaborative activities, and Kyushu University is actively engaging in Mirai initiatives since its launch. In Mirai 2.0, 5 research fields have been designed for further collaboration between the 2 countries, which you can see on this slide. Now, again, the question is, what are the outcomes of Mirai for Kyushu University? So last year, we hosted the Mirai Research and Innovation Week 2022. This was the first in-person meeting again within the Mirai 2.0 phase after the pandemic. And we invited more than 300 representatives from universities, companies, ministries, foundations, and research funding agencies to our Ito campus in Fukuoka. Now, through the management of this conference, we were able to forge even deeper ties with Mirai universities and many stakeholders in Sweden. And actually, Sweden is a very important strategic partner for us, and Kyushu University established its Stockholm liaison office in Sweden in 2020 as its European office. So hosting this R&I week on Ito campus was also a fantastic opportunity to maximize the presence of our Stockholm office. Also, the Mirai Seed Funding Project is another outcome. So this project aims to enhance collaboration among the Mirai researchers. And each project involves the participation of one main researcher from each country. And the Japanese side receives approximately 400,000 Japanese yen per project. So in 2022, the second term of Mirai Seed Funding, Kyushu University had the most submissions and approvals among the 20 member universities. And this scheme is an excellent opportunity, especially for early career researchers to initiate joint research projects and publications. And lastly, our third consortium membership is with DENKE. DENKE, or in long, the Japan-UK Research and Education Network for Knowledge Economy Initiatives. This is a partnership of 6 Japan and 6 UK research-intensive universities, and the British Council serves as its secretariat. Now, DENKE aims to strengthen knowledge exchange and research collaboration between Japan and the UK, obviously. And the DENKE members selected climate change and health as 2 priority areas for new joint research. Now, these areas were identified already as key strategic areas of science and technology collaborations between Japan and the UK in September 2017, actually, when the prime ministers of both countries met. And now very quickly also here about the outcomes for Kyushu University. So we implemented in DENKE a co-chair system only in 2021, which was proposed by Kyushu University based on our experiences with other consortia. Now, this co-chair system really has raised DENKE's visibility to all stakeholders and facilitated deeper and broader cooperation. Kyushu University and the University of Southampton were selected as the co-chairs for the first year, until this month, actually. And, well, we'd like to say it was a success. Now, this co-chair role provided Kyushu University with several opportunities to connect with UK member universities that are not yet our bilateral partners, as well as with UK government sectors. In addition, as part of the DENKE's 10th anniversary celebration, DENKE launched the ECR Fellowship Program, and Kyushu University also here actively recommended students and a professor as a mentor and provided travel grant support from the university. So such a scheme is a really great opportunity to promote diverse ECRs. And this is, for Kyushu University, truly one of the most significant strategic benefits or outcomes of joining such international consortia. And with this, I actually will conclude my very simple presentation. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Professor Konomi. The third presentation will be given by Toda Tatsuki, Dean of the Faculty of Science and Engineering of Soka University. Professor Toda, please.
So my name is Tatsuki Toda. So the Dean of the Faculty of Science and Engineering at Soka University, Japan. So the Soka University is very small university when comparing the today's attending the universities. But it is my pleasure to speak at today's second Strategic Partnership Symposium. So in my talk, exactly following the subtitle given, the case example of case study. So today, I would like to talk about the strategic interdisciplinary partnership through the SATREPS projects with Asian and African countries toward building a recycling-oriented society. So SATREPS is the abbreviation of the Science and Technology Research Partnership for Sustainable Development Partnership. So many of you may know about the SATREPS project. So it is supported by the JST and JICA and aims to solve the global issues through the 3 pillars of the project. So related here, 1 to 3. So in cooperation, with a research institution in emerging and developing countries. So we have two locations for our activities, so Malaysia and Ethiopia. At each site, so we are conducting research and development to realize a recycling-oriented society by utilizing unused organic waste. First, I would like to talk about the Cosmos project, which has been conducted in Malaysia until last year. So the project for continuous operation system for microalgae production optimized for the sustainable tropical aquaculture, so the acronym COSMOS. The partner for this project include the 4 institutions in Japan. The Soka University as the leading university, and the University of Tokyo, National Institute for Environmental Studies, and the Tokyo Institute of Technology. And 3 universities in Malaysia, so UPM as a representative of Malaysian institution, the UPM and the UNICEF. Here is the background reason for initiating our project Cosmos. So this graph shows rapid growth of aquaculture industry in Europe. The production of the aquaculture in Malaysia has rapidly increased very recently due to the national policy. On the other hand, so the market price is gradually saturated in red, the year 2000. Such rapid growth of aquaculture causes various coastal environmental issues. This is a typical developed coastal area. So the area that looks like a tatami, near here, shrimp farm ponds. So the photograph shows the polluted coastal waters by discharged wastewater from the aquaculture pond due to the accumulation of sludge. So then the Cosmos project developed sustainable tropical aquaculture systems by incorporating the microalgae mass culture. Microalgae have high CO2 fixation capacity, as you know well. So also the potential to produce the high-value products. So the microalgae can grow. So using nutrient from the aquaculture and produce high-value biocompounds. This coupling will also mitigate the water pollution. And now, we can produce various high-value materials from the microalgae. In private sectors, these materials are used for supplement and cosmetics are protected from the UV radiation. Also the green ones or light ones. These products are spirulina and chlorella. They're also used for supplement and the natural pigment for food. Maybe this microalgae. This is one of the microalgae producing the pigment. Originally, this is green. So this antioxidant is called the astaxanthin. They produce a very strong antioxidant. The antioxidant is commercially very expensive and very valuable. This slide shows the research structure of the Cosmos project. It has 2 pillars. The first pillar, left one, we conducted fundamental science research. The second pillar, developed applied technology. The blue pillar has 2 research themes. Theme 1, study the respecting of the prospecting of high-value indigenous microalgae. The theme 2 surveyed the natural growth promoting substances. The light one, the blue red pillar. There are also 2 research themes. The theme 3 developed a novel photobioreactor. The theme 4 developed nutrient recycling system. We have each group had the collaboration. With Malaysian institutions. The Tokyo University and the UMT and the National Institute of Environmental Studies and also UNICEF and Soka University and UPM and TI Tech and UPM, like that. So the second pillar, the nutrient recycling system is the key technologies. Also the novel photobioreactors is very important technology developed. So this one, the novel photobioreactor for developing the microalgae mass culture systems especially in tropical countries. So also we tried to develop the very cheap system, so that they can use this system to cultivate the microalgae. So this green photobioreactor is made of the plastic and chip back, the floating in an aquaculture pond to avoid high temperature. So and utilize the nutrient derived from aquaculture sludge. Finally, so this is the goal of Cosmos project. So the recycling system is very important. So how do we remove the nutrient from the microalgae? So also the new technologies have been researched and developed by young researchers from both countries, who have worked diligently to solve many problems. I show you the video.
Welcome to the SETREPS Cosmos demonstration site. SETREPS Cosmos demonstration site is an area where different technologies which SETREPS Cosmos develops are displayed. The site is located in Ladang 15 University Putra Malaysia, UPM, and has a range of novel technologies including low-cost outdoor microalgae cultivation, nutrient recycling, pisciponic recirculating aquaculture system, RAS. The outdoor scale-up multiple bag reactor system is a novel low-cost and low-energy closed photobioreactor system deployed on the water's surface. It is scalable, designed with a closed system to reduce contamination risks for producing high-quality microalgal biomass, and adopted a cradle system to reduce energy in the mass production of microalgae. The nutrient recycling technology that utilizes aquaculture sludge through a composting system will produce clean ammonia for the usage of algae cultivation. The integration concept of microalgae photobioreactors with aquaculture farming systems shows an innovative way towards circular initiatives for the mutual benefit of all stakeholders. Apart from that, we also have a fish culture system that consists of a pisciponic and recirculating aquaculture system, RAS, for experimental purposes. The SETREPS Cosmos Laboratory is established to cater the need for a laboratory with the facilities to provide research on microalgae. The laboratory is well equipped with a wide range of high-end instruments for microalgae research as well.
Okay, thank you very much. So this is the logo project. So next, this is another SETREPS project. So and it has been conducted in Ethiopia. So this is ongoing project. The title, the eco-engineering on agricultural revitalization toward human health improvement. The acronym AS, the transforming water hyacinths to energy and nutrition. So this is a huge area covered with water hyacinths. So in Tana Lake, so Ethiopia. So the covering an area as large as that Tokyo 20 world. So there were many villages where it is impossible to launch a fishing boat. So in addition, so it is dark. This is not land. So the water hyacinths, this one they are cutting. So it is so dark under the water hyacinth that the photosynthesis is not possible and the oxygen level are quite low, resulting in decrease in biodiversity. So the problem should be solved immediately. So this slide model diagram of the modern African recycling society proposed in this project. So excessive growth, water hyacinths, and due to the eutrophication, the sustainable harvesting, and while preserving the lake ecosystem, the solid and liquid separation. After that, we collect the energy and produce a biochar to improve the soil, and so on. So then we organized an international team to solve this problem. The team are classified into 4 groups, 4 themes. So as you can see, the water hyacinth management model. So they were using the information science, and the second one, the nutrients, so energy recovery. So on the third one, we produced the microalgae, vegetable, biochar to improve the soil condition. And the last one is very important, business model and the societal implementation. So this team that combines the art and sciences, so the fusion of art and sciences team. So we use the indigenous microalgae spirulina, which is originated from the Ethiopia. So many Ethiopians do not know these findings. So also the high biochar rate enhances the production of teff. So the teff is the Ethiopian representative grain. Then let's talk about what we were able to do for our counterpart through this project. So I would like to talk about the Cosmos project as an example. I would like to summarize. So the JICA equipment. So we provided the necessary equipment to counterpart by using the frame of Japan International Cooperation Agency Development Assistance. The total 83 equipment were installed, at Malaysian 3 institutions. So also this one. And the second one is also Nobel outdoor scaled. No. Second one is very important. So the 11 researchers, trained, in Japan. So also we have the many meetings, to discuss the project. So the third one, workshops, seminars, symposium, and outreach activities. So this photo is workshops. So how to use the equipment, the exported from us, and how to analyze the materials and the contents. So finally, this is the total number of the training visit in Japan, the training course, the workshop. So dispatch the Japanese expert. So for 6 years, 35 people are training the visit in Japan, and the 12 the training courses were held. So in Malaysia, sometimes we held such kind of workshops in Japan too. And totally, we sent the specialists from Japanese. About the dispatch of the Japanese expert, 69 people. And the sustaining, in order to sustain this project, through these activities, the 11 manuals were written in Malaysia. And they are used in Ethiopia too. Last one is very important too. So about the publication and so the promotion of career advancement of young researchers. So totally the 102 were articles. That 102 the articles, including the 40. So as a co-authored, so with Malaysian researchers. So the 13 the patents were submitted, and so the 29 awards. So through these energetic the research activities, a total of 57 graduate students received degree over 6 years of the project. Additionally, about promotion of career advancement of young researchers. So this is a Malaysian side, and this is a Japanese side. So today I talked about fostering the partnerships through the SATREPS project. So and by focusing on the development of young researchers and putting them in the lead role, so that we are able to secure the lateral expansion and continuity even after the project is over. It is not often that young researchers have the opportunity to work harder with researchers from the other countries on research and development. The SATREPS has been a very effective means of the following the partnership. Thank you very much for giving the opportunity to talk about our activity. Thank you for listening.
Professor Toda, thank you very much. Unfortunately, because of time constraint, we will not have enough time for questions, but if the three presenters could have their cameras on for a little while. Also, thank you very much for presenting the activities that your universities are doing. Now, I would like to ask Professor Kawahara Genta, Executive Vice President of Osaka University, for the closing remarks. Professor Kawahara.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction. I'm Genta Kawahara from Osaka University. On behalf of the Japanese membership universities, I would like to make the closing remarks. First, I would like to express my deepest gratitude to the University of Tokyo. This symposium is an important platform to share the challenges and good practices of a strategic partnership project. In cooperation with each other and MEXT, I believe we are successfully working towards the internationalization of Japanese universities. Once again, thank you very much for your tremendous effort in hosting this symposium. My sincere appreciation also goes to Mr. Yosuke Kobayashi from MEXT, the speakers of membership universities, and Professor Gerald Weiss, Vice Provost of University College London, for their speeches today. What you have shared with us today is essential to reaching the aims of the symposium, especially in his talk. Professor Lees specifically identified advancements, advantages, and the challenges of cooperation with Japanese universities at different scales. Institutional, national, and international levels. I think that such rational consideration should be significant for launching and promoting more strategic international collaboration between universities. The informative presentations and discussions of this symposium will certainly lead to opportunities for much closer collaboration between us. Once again, thank you very much for your cooperation and to all who join us. I hope that this symposium has been useful to you and that our strategic partnerships will continue to deepen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Kawahara. That brings us to the end of our symposium. I would like to thank the speakers and panelists and all those who attended for their time and attention. Also, one reminder is today's recording and presentation material will be available for viewing on the University of Tokyo Strategic Partnership Project website. And finally, I would like to ask all those who attended the symposium today if they would kindly complete the questionnaire that will appear on your screen after this. Thank you very much, good evening, and goodbye.